Welcome, astrology lovers, to Astrology Hub TV, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us a little bit later than we'd planned. Gemini was traveling and had some flight delays, so thank you for your patience, and now we're here. So my name's Amanda Poole-Walsh, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Astrology Hub. And Astrology Hub TV is a weekly show dedicated to helping you explore your connection to the cosmos and how cultivating this connection can help you live a more empowered, fulfilling, and vibrant life. We're here live every Thursday, usually at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Today, obviously, different time. So if you want to sign up for live alerts and make sure that you catch every episode of Astrology Hub TV, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of this video above. It's also going to be in the chat. This will also make sure that if we do have time changes, you will be the first to know. So sign up for live alerts now. This week, I am so excited to be featuring one of Astrology Hub's most popular astrologers, Gemini Brett. He is a storyteller, a shamanic astrologer, and also one of our inner circle guides. And today we're going to explore the depths of eclipses and sacred astronomy. And you're going to learn about why eclipse windows are known as portals of transformation and purging. We're going to learn about the Celtic New Year, Imbolc, also referred to as the Quickening. We're going to learn about the magical 11s of the Saros Cycles and how to incorporate sacred astronomy into your ceremonial practices. All right, so I would love to tune in with all of you and get a sense for how the eclipse energy is affecting you. Are you feeling it? Is it intense? Are you doing a lot of purging? Are you feeling that need to let go of maybe people, of experiences, of ideas? Would love to hear in the chat if you can just let both Gemini Brett and I know. We will be looking at that and commenting and interacting with you later. And so this episode today is for you if you're interested in understanding how eclipses affect you, if you'd like to understand eclipse cycles better, and if you're interested in doing ceremony with the moon cycles, and or if you just simply love Gemini Brett, which pretty much most of our audience does. So for those of you who don't know Gemini already, I'm going to do a quick introduction. As a certifiable storyteller, Gemini Brett devotes his now as a living vow to the marriage of heaven and earth. He began his formal study with the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, but has since synthesized his own terrestrially tuned celestial stew by integrating ingredients from many ancient and modern paradigms. Brett's principal intention is to retrieve the star songs heard in times before the written word. He transmits the mysteries he finds in sacred sites and living sky through a system of embodied exercises he calls Earth Astrology, and through the sacred sciences of the quadrivium: geometry, musical harmony, astronomy, and number and nature. Gemini Brett is best known through cosmic circles as an astronomy for astrology expert and mystic mythologist. But the truth you'll find when you get to know this fiery Scorpio is that his techniques are designed to water the heart through remembering signs of the messenger's mind. So if you can follow all of that, congrats to you. I think I did pretty good that time, not stumbling around with my words.
Tongue twister kind of intentionally, and you did amazing. And it's also, it's kind of like reminding me every time I hear it, which isn't that often, of my vows and, my devotion in this work. So it's cool to hear. And good job.
Thanks. Thank you. I've been practicing. All right. So let's dive in. Let's talk about first why eclipse windows are known as portals of transformation and purging. And maybe you could start by telling us, or just orienting us to where we're at right now in this eclipse portal.
Yeah. Well, did you see the blood moon the other night?
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. Oh, yeah. You guys had clear sky?
Well, we did some cloud parting, and then yes,
awesome.
We had clear skies. Yes.
And it was successful cloud parting.
Yes, it was.
That's something else, right? That's because you can feel the participation, and it's really cool. I used to like battle clouds, and it doesn't work so well. I've teamed up with stars on the other sides of the clouds but yeah, I'm really trying to make friends with clouds lately. And make friends with Moon as well, because I love Moon so much, but she's also can be, a spotlight that just takes those stars from the dark skies.
Well,
right?
that was actually one of the coolest things, is to see the constellations around the full moon that we normally
Yeah.
can't see. And it was really cool to see like the Leo constellation pop out. And then once the full moon started to return, once the shadow was leaving, um,
Dim down.
it disappeared again. But it was just really,
Yeah, the
that kind of like,
lion was like eating the eclipse. That was so cool.
it was
Yeah, that
really,
was my first experience ever. I took a bunch of folks down to Arizona in 2014 for the first of those 4 blood moons in a row, the tetrad in 2014 and 2015. And got out there and it was like, why did I come to like the best sky ever on a full moon? And then just like that, right? That one was a really long eclipse. Like this one was pretty short because the super moon's closer to Earth, and therefore the moon looks bigger, and so it has less time for the Earth's shadow to go by, like relatively speaking. So when the moon's far away, it's buried in Earth's shadow for longer. But it was a forever eclipse, and just like you just said, the shadow comes in, covers the moon. You're starting to see what it looks like on a half moon, and then a crescent moon, and then suddenly the Milky Way's out and everything. It's so magical. And so one of the reasons why eclipses are portals is because you see every phase of the moon, right? A month of moon in hours time. So it's like you're taking that entire energetic cycle from seed to sprout to flower to fruit, which carries the seed, as I say, like in that moment of an hour. And, but we well know we're feeling eclipses before they happen. And this is such a special eclipse, you and I had a conversation, I don't know when it was, May or June last year, maybe, preparing for the total solar eclipse in Leo. And in a way, the series of eclipses that we're in the midst of right now, because we just had the total lunar eclipse January 31st, and then we have partial solar eclipse on February 15th. And they're like the responses to the calls of last year's August eclipses. I never want to say it's an end of anything. The whole thing's a cycle. But it's very much like a call and response around the sides of the zodiac. And then they'll move retrograde. They'll move backwards from Leo, Aquarius to Cancer, Capricorn, and they'll do that. And it's a really beautiful opportunity to experience the language of the zodiac or the archetypes and what we tend to think of as backwards, the precessional motion. And I think there's some interesting kind of conundrums that come up because we're so used to Aries becomes Taurus, becomes Gemini, and the flow, like the natural flow of planets. When planets go retrograde, we experience this a little bit, but no planets will retrograde the entire zodiac, right? So the nodes really are, they're the only guides for us to do that. And these nodes, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, and the idea of like dragon magic and serpent magic in eclipse anyway. And there's this really great serpenty word that's Szygy. Have you heard that word?
No, that's a great word. Can you spell it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like SYG. I don't know. Maybe we should look it up. It's really beautiful. It's like, if you guys are like Scrabble heads or whatever, you want this word. SYZYGY.
Syzygy.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know
Okay,
if
and what
there's
does
enough
this mean?
Y's in Scrabble for that, actually. It's an alignment of 3 celestial bodies, a perfect alignment. And of course, in the case of an eclipse, it's Earth, Moon, and Sun, right? Lunar eclipse, Sun, Earth, Moon. So Moon's bathing in the Earth's shadow. Moon turns blood red. Why? Because it's actually Earth's sunsets and sunrises from both sides being cast onto the lunar surface. So we're seeing Earth reflected in Moon in this way. And, I just love that blood color because the more that I play with these bodies, these big 3 bodies, right? It feels to me that Sun is what I consider to be spirit, or the all that is, at least our local representative of that. I'm feeling more and more that, well, there's Amanda and Brett, there's also human, and cactus or whatever, and dolphin, and that Earth in a way carries the frequencies of like the oversoul of all earthlings. And that Sun carries the frequency or the oversoul of all beings of all planets in our system. And so at the heart of our system, she's like, our great symbol for the one thing. But then, of course, there's galactic center, which is that for these hundreds of billions of stars. Then we can go out and out and out forever. But just to have that local essence, Kermi says in the Emerald Tablet, he says the Father of perfection of the whole world is here, and its force be entire if converted into earth. And it feels to me that he's speaking in a way of sun, and the mechanism for converting that force into earth is moon. That in a way, moon, which receives and reflects, it's like she becomes pregnant with the spirit, and as soul reflects that to earth, where we can have these experiences in matter. And I really feel every time I see a blood moon that it's this reminder that it's the blood in the veins that allows us to have a human experience, and a soul experience, in this way. And that blood linking back to these cycles of humanity, or of our own experiences, maybe past lives or through our ancestors. So yeah, Szygy is this perfect alignment of three things. And there aren't many places where the Szygy aligns in such a way, from a place where, and we know this is like an optical illusion, but moon and sun appear to be the same size, right? So, and to me, that is one of the greatest miracles, and one of the greatest, hints that there's something more going on than some accidental result of a big bang or whatever,
Yes.
So have you seen that? We talked about the 108 before with eclipses.
I think so.
Yeah, the moon is 108 moons from Earth, and the sun is 108 suns from Earth. And the sun is 108 Earth diameters in diameter. So this incredible number that relates the three. There's another one as well, 400. The moon is 400 times closer on average than sun, but 400 times smaller, right? But the 108 too, the 108 is the atomic weight of silver, which is the metal often, associated with moon. And moon is 1080 miles in radius. And just all these weird things come in the number play. And then 108 actually is a really key number in the eclipse cycles too. So the cycles of eclipses are so important, because as you're preparing for eclipse or honoring what might be alive for you, like I got really, really sick this last week. I had to postpone a class that I'm teaching right now, and was just in it, like sweating so bad and only sleeping half an hour. And I try to remember in the midst of my like poor me whining in the time of such a difficult sickness, that I'm allowed also, as I'm like coughing all this stuff out of myself and blowing it out of my nose, I'm also allowed to connect to that flow, things and old patterns and things that I'm ready to release. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I'd love if you can speak to that, because we're talking about eclipses being a portal of transformation. This comment from Ingrid is making me really want to address also this time of endings and purging. One of the things that Anne Orderly said, she's our inner circle guide for Astrology Hub this lunar cycle. And she said to, as much as possible, and Ingrid, I'm going to read your comment, but, find gratitude for the ending, because anything that's leaving your life right now, it is a blessing, even if it doesn't feel like that in the moment, and potentially someday you will be able to see that. But so Ingrid says, Gemini, just so you know, I have so much sadness and negative energy surrounding me. I'm a Leo, but feel nothing like one right now. My marriage of 21 years ended effective today. I didn't realize it was the full moon time. So emotional right now. And Ingrid, I also had a marriage end about a year ago. And I know that day, like that definitive day, is really, really emotional. So I can definitely relate on that level. And the timing is certainly auspicious. So Gemini, do you want to speak to the endings and the, how that comes in with the eclipse energies?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways. So one of them is just following the nodes, right? Because the nodes are where syzygy can happen. And for folks that don't know that, why that is, like, why don't we have a solar eclipse every new moon? And the reason is that the moon and the sun aren't on the same track from Earth's point of view. And so there's all this serpent symbolism with moon and sun, like moon every month. If this is the line of the sun, every month the moon snakes above and below. So usually we'll have like a new moon with the moon up here or down here. And so no eclipse for you. But when the moon and the sun meet at the moon's crossing point, then we can have this syzygy and we can have that shadow experience. Yeah, and it is a shadowy experience, that's undeniable in the ways of eclipse. And I love what you're relaying from Anne Orley of like having gratitude for what's leaving. I mean, I will even say it does not leave until you do. It finds its way back in. That same energy that's causing despair or pain or whatever, it's, in my philosophy, and I'm not alone in this, it's here as a teacher. And that teacher is happy to teach a different curriculum, but not until you've really matriculated from the one that's going on. And to me, that graduation always looks like gratitude for this has helped me grow. And so there's that beautiful saying that we grow through what we go through. And that can be a helpful reminder, I think, when we're in the hard times. But I think we can also get stuck on that by thinking that means no pain, no gain, which isn't the trip. Like you can go through and grow through bliss and beauty too, right? So we can follow the nodes of the moon as kind of when the poles of signs get turned on and off, or pass the baton in a sense. So the nodal movement, because these nodes are where the sun's path and the moon's path cross, and for me, that's the symbol of the marriage of soul and spirit. I feel like the greatest divide is and I actually feel that it's an illusion, but the illusionary division between soul and spirit. The forgetfulness, the art of forgetting that soul is not a reflection of all that is. And so we come to have our experiences here where we have these pains and these pleasures and we feel and heal and know and grow. And that in a sense allows higher self soul to transform, which is an instant transformation for all things, for spirit itself. On that level, when I'm going through really difficult stuff, there's a couple things, there's a mantra that I say. So one is just to remind myself that means that I have this opportunity to grow in a way as I'm here on earth experiencing this division, this split between soul and spirit. I'm meant to forget that so that I can have an experience for the sake of growth. And just realigning myself to that philosophy in the times of the burning and the pain can be really, I think, helpful. There's another thing that the Germans yelled at the Beatles. It said when they were like young and they were first playing, they used to yell at them, "Make show," they would say, right? And so the Beatles had to learn to rock out on stage a little bit. And I like to say that to myself. I'm like in a corner just crying or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm fully making show right now. Like higher self is looking down and it's like, at least this is good television right now, if nothing else. But the other thing is the way we why. So, things are painful and I can shake my fist to the sky and I have why me? What did I do to deserve this? Whatever. But that same question of why me, if asked, why me? With curiosity, can really accelerate that distance or that movement from the place of why is this happening to me to the place of why did that happen for me? Because we know once the shift and the change has happened, And so the eclipse, it's just, if you go to watch an eclipse especially, I actually feel that's really a beautiful way to come to eclipse. A lot of people have warned against that and say it'll open difficult things in your life. I don't feel that like that fear game is ever positive. There are some good reasons I've been receiving visions around why you shouldn't necessarily eat food during an eclipse, like while it's happening and closing. And anyone who just did a couple of days ago, you're all good. Don't worry about that. But there's some things that I've been receiving my visions that kind of confirm some of the things that I've heard that I used to see as superstition, but now I see them as like really solid spirit science. But I think coming to witness the eclipse, because what you see is that full shadow and everything going and the dimming of the light, but then the lights return. And just to know that we experience this in our own ways, like, you know, Ingrid, that's a very courageous and beautiful share, and that's appreciated, you know. And that's an eclipse, right? You know what I mean? Suddenly this thing that was a light for you, gone. And how do we deal with that? You know, in alchemy, we speak about after that time of the burning or the calcination, there's disillusion, and, you know, kind of everything we knew we were is gone. And you kind of have to forget all of that, and you lose your mind doing so. And then suddenly you find these gems of you that were in hiding in the old condition, you know?
And Gemini, I wanted to point to that, because what was amazing is to see that when the shadow was there, we actually could see more of the sky. You know, so in the shadow, even later, there were clouds that were kind of playing around the moon, and their shadows would cross the moon and make it even more beautiful. So it was interesting, the conversation that we were having around the shadow and what it actually illuminated. And when the moon became bright again, we couldn't see those things anymore. So I think that's just an interesting thing for all of us to sit with, in terms of kind of our fear of the shadow and not really wanting to go into it. But what does it illuminate, and what does it expose for us that is actually beautiful in the end?
Totally. And, you know, I always travel in a lot of black, just it's a really incredible grounding color. I wear a lot of black anyway. And some people, I think, like, feel that it's just morbid, or I've been living in Seattle in gray skies too long or whatever. But in some ways it is the color of earth. You know, I mean, she's green and blue and luscious and beautiful, and the flowers are the way she giggles and all that, you know, but without the sun, without the light, like earth is a black ball in the sky. And there's something in that very, to me, like rooted grandmother energy of like being comfortable with our darkness that can be so profound. And that's what allows us to look out and see these lights and see the veil and see these great guides of the star beings. And, you know, it's a wonderful thing just to see that opportunity, like to engage with the moon year round, or at least month by month, and see her wax and see her wane. And especially if you get away from the city lights, you know, I was with a crew in Joshua Tree having ceremony for this eclipse. And it's so cool to be out there walking in the middle of the desert, and it's lit up, you know, and that silver light. I told people, like, you're going to want to bring flashlights, just like for the solar eclipse last year, so you want to bring jackets. Right? It's the middle of August. It's going to be hot, but you want to bring jackets because the temperature is going to drop, and you want to bring flashlights. You get out there and it's like, we don't even need flashlights. Like, I can do cartwheels across these Joshua Tree boulders right now and not really worry because it's like sunlight, but then the light goes away and it's not like pitch black, but it's pretty dang close, you know? And it's a cool reminder just to like, when do you feel safe? Like that light, that illumination just really allows us to feel safe. And giving ourselves permission to find safety, to find comfort, to find rest, even in that time of shadow or time of darkness, is so profound. You know, there was a time in my life when I was engaged with like, I guess the best way to say it is a shamanic diet with prayer. And I had no idea what I was going to get into. I mean, it wasn't long before this when I would have cringed at that word. And one thing that happened during my course is I would go out to the park. I was like really intent on connecting with nature. And I was just going to take a short walk and I'll come back and finish my work. And I go take a short walk. And then suddenly, like 6 hours later, I open my eyes because something went cracked in the dark of night. And here I am sitting in like meditation in the middle of the forest, and it's pitch black. And it happened a few times until I got to the point like, oh, I'm supposed to be at the forest at night. And so I was out at night in the forest and learning how to not flinch when squirrels or who knows what it is are running by, and that who knows what it is the scary thing, right? But and during those times, these weird like old prayers were coming to my mind, which the only like Christian prayers that I knew like came to me through like listening to reggae music, you know, but that stuff would come out, and it was just such a powerful time. But that journey of learning not to flinch physically when things go crack in the dark of night, then I could bring in like, oh, here's my financial fears because I've chosen to be an astrologer instead of use my university degree or whatever, like all those little things in life, which are so big, we bring them out into the darkness of night. And if we don't flinch in the physical space, that stuff just doesn't seem so scary anymore. So I think these eclipse happenings, which can be just so heavy and so dark and weird things happen during eclipses, you know? So it's good to be like energized and like ready to be surprised. And it doesn't have to be surprised in some negative way. In fact, if we get stuck in that loop, that's, as we know, much more likely to happen. But just to be in a place where you can be firm and be centered, you know, and solid and in this place and witness and just experience this amazing alignment of spirit and matter and soul and the shadow and the light. And I mean, the moon set where we were, she started eclipsing. She moved into the Earth's shadow not to like just before 4 a.m. And so she was just leaving shadow and we were seeing that crescent return. And then we got to see a southern hemisphere crescent moon set, right? Because the way that the crescent set here in the northern hemisphere, you never see that in that side of the sky, except for at like new moon time, like the waxing crescent. But we saw a waning crescent on the wrong side of the sky at the wrong time if you really work like with the moon. And so that was so profound to see. And there's something I better say before I forget. Coming to these opportunities, these experiences in the celestial heavens in community is so important, because when we come and we come with an intention, it doesn't have to be a shared intention. In fact, I don't really recommend it. I think it's a extra supportive and profound thing for us to be in circles where we can do our individual work, but to know that there is a feel, that there is like, first of all, it's really nice to know that other people have interest in these things.
So wait, let me just back up for a sec. You're talking about creating ceremony, gathering with other people around these types of events, whether it's just, you know, the new moon, full moon in the regular lunar cycle, but especially for big events like eclipses and things.
Absolutely. Yeah, because people have your back, you know. I mean, you might go a little insane for a few moments in there, and it's nice to know that somebody's going to be around to love you, you know. But just also, just like, and this is funny, the South Node's in Aquarius now. There's a reason why we can write better when we're in a library, because, you know, the Aquarius side of this axis for me is the imagination, where the Leo side is inspiration, and together they're creation and creativity. And that side of our antenna, we just, when we come together in couples or groups, you know, we really expand the opportunity to tune in and to share back. But then to be in our own quest, I think this is a really important thing. That was like the primary thing that's been coming up for me in this time of Aquarius, Leo, and these eclipses. So I'm in a few branches at once. Let me see if I can bring them like back to the trunk a little bit. So one is this idea of the nodes retrograding through the signs. And so how long is like an eclipse chapter? Is this the end of what started in August, or what's going on there? So one thing I would say is, yeah, you know, we had all those fires and this, you know, flooding and craziness after that. When you and I talked, I was like, yeah, you know, the books say fire in the hills, but let's not go there. Like, let's use this as, you know, and that stuff happens. So we don't want to like completely ignore the teachings of this craft, even when they're like a lot to handle. But we also want to make sure that we don't get lost in that, or get back to the why. Why is this, you know, so we can transform. And so in a way, on the other side of like the response to that call is, well, how did you step up to that? You know, how have you responded? Is that still happening? And I think a lot of people out here have like really accelerated since the August eclipses of 2017, like significantly. I mean, a lot of people, especially were speaking to this community, like Astrology Hub was so key for spreading awareness and bringing people together, right? So we don't have to do this in person. I think it's a good thing to do more and more. But to have, and this is an Aquarius South Node too, right? Like having like the World Wide Web and this technology community is an amazing way to come together and to align our intentions, because these beings up there, they can hear us, you know? And the more of us that are speaking, the more that is heard. And then the louder that voice gets, or the more clear for us to receive. So in some senses, you know, where you've been, like, how has the shattering come in? How has the support come in? Where has the growth been? This is just an amazing time, this window we're in now. And, you know, again, the lunar eclipse was January 31st. The solar eclipse will be February 15th. The lunar eclipse on January 31st, 2018, opposite the degrees where the lunar eclipse was on August 7th, 2017. And then the solar eclipse on February 15th, 2018, opposite where the solar eclipse was on August 21st, 2017, right? So you get these polarity pairs and this kind of call and response. So this is also a wonderful time to put your hand on your heart and say, how's it been? Where have I gone? You know? And I think a lot of us will say, yeah, I've been like rocking this. This has been good. And I think a lot of people have been called to astrology during this particular kind of period of stimulation. And you can just see, like, how much did I know 6 months ago and where am I now? But I think we'll find some resolution or some gift and some response to, well, how can we do better in times of crisis? Because certainly crisis was part of that eclipse window in August last year, in personal life and community life, global. And so that to me is the thing, like, what are the gifts from the challenges? So, but I'll say this isn't the end of that in any regard. In fact, it's just the middle period of the nodal passage in these signs. So that's a thing to track. The nodes take 18.6 years to go all the way around. So if you know the tarot, the card of the moon is 18 and sun is 19. And just between those times, 18.6 is the marriage of their past, which is the lunar nodes. And it's a way to remember that. So if you divide 18.6 by 12 signs, you get about a year and a half, 1.6 years. So the nodes came in and they moved backwards again. So they moved from Virgo and Pisces into Leo and Aquarius on May 9th, 2017, I want to say. And they're there until November of 2018. So this is just the midpoint of that, right? And in fact, we'll have some eclipses this year, like Cancer, Capricorn, even before the new nodes move to those signs, because the eclipses, like the syzygy, doesn't have to be perfect, which happens at the nodes. A lunar eclipse can happen like as far as 13 degrees of the zodiac away from the nodes, and a solar eclipse as much as 17 degrees and change. So they can be like over a cusp, right? But I would follow the nodes and kind of concentrate on that as the archetypal calling of where the shadow play is at this time. And so this is a really profound thing. So if you just think about Leo, and, you know, did you hear this term for this eclipse, like by the kind of pop fold of the blue blood?
Yeah.
Super, right.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea there is that it's a blood moon, which is just a way to describe a total lunar eclipse because of the Earth shadow turning the reflection into redness, as I described before. Blue moon because it's the second full moon in a calendar month, which, by the way, is like BS. That's like a new Sky and Telescope magazine literally created this idea of what a blue moon is because people couldn't track what a true blue moon is. Like, why does the moon give a rat's about the Gregorian calendar is my question.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So wait, what was the blue moon before? Is that just a new term?
Well, I just came to like an older Vedic suggestion. I haven't confirmed this, but it was a good enough source for me that like Krishna, because Krishna was blue moon, the blue moon is the second full moon in a sign. And that actually translates much closer to like a second blue moon in a calendar month. People should know that in Vedic astrology, they're using a different zodiac than ours. So that's going to be a little different. But I'll say in, you know, the Celtic way or let's say the pagan way, actually, that's a good word to use right now. It's the third full moon in a season that has 4. So most seasons, 3 months, have 3 full moons. And about every 3 years, you get one season that has 4 full moons. Now, the old calendars would name these full moons every season. And so you have a beginning and a middle and an end, and they're marked by those full moons. And so you don't like add a second ending, you stretch out the middle, you see. So the third full moon. So we started this year with full moon on January 1st, right? If you feel that that's the beginning of a year, it's like most of us have accepted, whether consciously or it was just handed to us. And the 12, there's like 12 new moon to new moon or full moon to full moon. That's 354 days. That's called a silver year. So the 355th day of this year, we'll have another full moon. And that's December 22nd. Now that is the second day of a season, right? So you can believe that next year we will have a true blue moon, the third full moon of a season that has 4. And so Sky and Telescope, I think, does this because it was easier for their readers or whatever. But in this as well is, and I don't think consciously, but it's a continuation of this thing that will take us away from our pagan heritage. And, you know, whether that, however that word registers with you, let me just say this, like people who are actually tuning their feelings of what the year is as we move through the stations, through the solstices, through the equinoxes, like very physical, you know, happenings of matter and spirit, of earth and sun, seasons, right? And they're tuned to the directions, and that's where the tropical zodiac comes from, the directions. So if we forget those ways, we put a wall up between the ability to receive the teachings of our blood and our ancestry. So this has been a really wonderful time, the blue blood moon, for me to, as I do, complain about science taking us from spirit. Just in this way, I don't mean real science in that, but like that materialistic science fold, taking us from our spiritual heritage, which actually connects us more intimately with Earth, right? Yes. And so we were going to speak about that today, of Imbolc, right? Because that's one of these cross quarters of these times.
Exactly. Yeah. So you were going to talk to us about the Celtic New Year, Imbolc, and why this is referred to as the quickening.
Yeah. So this is one of the kind of the Sacred Astronomy teachings. I'm in the midst right now of teaching my first Sacred Astronomy for Astrologers course, which has been great. It's like 100 students. It's like been high pressure for me to get my stuff together. But it's been happening pretty well. And a bunch of them just showed up in Joshua Tree to celebrate together. It was great. So I don't want to like do too much here, but if you just follow the sun on the rise for the course of the year, you'll notice that at equinox time, the sun rises due east. And then as she springs, well, at least northern hemisphere spring, but everywhere in the world, she'll move further north from March equinox. And she reaches her northern extreme at the June solstice, right? That's Cancer. You can see in this Cancer glyph, the sun stopped moving one way and turns around and starts moving the other. Solstice literally translates as the stopping of the sun, and that's what's happening. So whether it's on the eastern horizon or the western horizon for sunset, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo are northern signs. They both rise north of east, they set north of west, everywhere in the world, right? And this is why I say our tropical zodiac is directional, not seasonal, because there's seasonal opposition between the hemispheres, but this is true everywhere. And then we get back to equinox, rising due east, setting due west everywhere in the world. It's September equinox. And then Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces are the south signs. They rise south of east, they set south of west. Last degree of Sagittarius, first degree of Capricorn, solstice, that's the furthest southern extreme on the rise in the east and the rest in the west. And so what's happening is you get this movement of the sun every year. The moon does this every month because the signs do this every day. The signs have places on the horizons where they live. It's a really wonderful way to connect to the energies of the archetypes and the poetic breath of nature, as I like to describe the source of astrology, not some set of rules and equations. But as this is happening, it has to solstice. The sun stops, so it gets really slow and then slow, right? So the fastest movement of the sun on the horizons is equinox time, right in the middle. You think of a pendulum, right? And it's this time Imbolc, which is a cross quarter, I'll get back to what that is, where we start quickening, because it's kind of had to hit the brakes to turn around at solstice time. And now it's picking up speed, and now we're getting quick at the Imbolc, at the cross quarter. So you can think of the cross as solstices and equinoxes. And then we'll see this a lot, especially in the pagan traditions, or like the Buddhist, eightfold way, is the octagon. So you have a cross of solstices and equinoxes, and then the cross in between. And in tropical astrology, solstice, equinox, that's the first degree of the cardinal signs, right? They begin the seasons. So in between those, you get 90 degrees of the zodiac in a season, 3 months, right? So the very middle is halfway through the second sign of the season, which we call the fixed signs, when the nature of the season's fully fixed in. Yeah, so Aries begins northern hemisphere spring, but middle of Taurus is when the flowers are full bloom, and that's Beltane, the fertility festival. So halfway between March equinox and June solstice, Beltane. And then halfway between June solstice and September equinox, Lammas. And it's like 15 degrees Leo about there. It's slightly off for interesting reasons that I don't want to play with today. Halfway between September equinox and December solstice, Samhain. Nowadays we call it Halloween, right? And then halfway between December solstice and March equinox, right where we are, Imbolc. Yeah, and it's a time that's associated with Brigid, is an amazing goddess who was the great goddess, the great triple-headed, maiden, mother, crone, like queen goddess of the Celtic lands. And in a way, Brigid, she was like sainted because she was like turned into a nun for the Christian tradition. And actually, as in my month here as an inner circle, Astrology Hub inner circle guide, which will be September, I'm working the Virgo month this year. We'll ask Brigid to come and be a great guidess for us in that month. And this idea of what is it for the goddess herself to be like turned into a nun. But, and this is a lot of what we were working with at our ceremony for this blood moon. And just thinking about that of like, the high goddess being turned into a nun and in this Leo energy, what does that mean? How were the people who would claim control? How could they do this? But also nuns were, women of really high power in that time too. And so it's interesting to me, the blue blood thing's so intriguing to me because of the idea of blue-blooded, like royal people and that association with Leo. So I think this time, and I would love to hear in the chat if other people are experiencing this, elitism, play with the need to be seen, the inability to be seen. I experienced that as I shared with you just after the August solar eclipse, like some weird shit around my own ego. And so like narcissism, like anti-narcissism, needing to stay small to be a loving part, an equal part of the collective. And like those themes, I think, are meant to really be alive, both in our own like individual experience, cultural experience, but also like global experience too. And there's an amazing revolution happening in Iran right now. It seems to be kind of tuned to this Leo Aquarius axis has long been known as the axis of royalty and the revolutionary, right? So I wonder if that's been alive for people, if those archetypes have kind of come through and shine. So, I couldn't stop laughing when I first read that term. Nice.
Can you see what that says?
All I see is the crown.
It says it's good to be queen.
It is good to be queen. See, and that's a really important thing to remember. So this is a trip with Leo in general. The great gift of these fixed signs, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and they are the places where the seasons are fixed in. They are the cross-quarter places. So 15 degrees of all these signs are the middle places of the seasonal energy. My mantra for all of them is fix yourself to fix the world. And each according to their own element. So fire, Leo, right? So Aries, others. spark starts it. And the spirit of the fire, the mutable sign, Sagittarius, the smoke that rises, it travels far and wide, it finds its own path to the heavens, and it carries the spark that starts the next. But we need Leo to complete the trine. So Leo takes that spark and fixes it so it doesn't rage out of control, as we know Aries sometimes can lead us to do, and fixes it in a place so that fire just doesn't passionately, blaze out, but rather fixes into this ember, this wonderful kind of roaring flames, Leo, so the party can last all night long in the warmth of this blaze. And that warmth, that place, and this is a beautiful thing about Bridget too, like her flame has been burning for millennia, literally, in Kilgore in Ireland. The original flame of Bridget, who was the keeper of the sacred flame, still burns. And people take it. See, fire, which is will and spirit, lives like here, that is the one element we can share without giving ours away. But to do this, you have to stoke your flames. It's good to be queen, right? So people like take a candle or a torch and get the flame of Bridget, get on a plane, bring it back to their community. It's spread all around the world. And this is a wonderful thing about the eclipses too, right? Is that they can be seen not everywhere in the world, but in so many places. Like people in the East Coast watched the eclipse begin as the moon was setting. We caught it around like 4 a.m. and then it set just as it was ending. You saw the whole thing. People west of you, in Europe or whatever, they saw just the end of the eclipse as the moon was rising. We were all looking at the same time, but it was happening at different times for all of us. Yeah. Which it's just so global. And so even in that way, like that blood moon was the flame of Bridget. It allowed us to pass that torch and experience it, okay? But we want to be that for people. We're all going through these mystical experiences. I like to, I like to answer that idea of it's the awakening. I just call it the weirding. And it feels weird and it's strange and it can be so isolating and difficult for the old people that we loved and knew to understand. And we can feel that call to help them see this new thing. And then that just causes more division. It's such a trip. That stuff's really meant to be alive for us at this time too, I believe. And then isolation tends to be part of the bit, but then fellowship. And that fellowship happens when you turn your homing beacon on, right? And what that is this love. So seeing that, wow, I don't even understand. Like for me, it used to be go to the baseball game with the guys and, intimately as men, what do? We just like ridiculed one another and ridiculed all the players on the field and everything. And that was like being dudes, right? And so after I like started in my weirding, hanging out with the guys, it's like, wait, we're just talking smack about each other. Like, is that really cool? So how do I engage now with like, normal people? And for so long, it was like, I have to show you this. And it was just really pushing. And now I'm interested in being like a double agent and going to see how normal people live and hearing those things. And then if asked, right, I can give. Or the idea of lightening or illuminating the blaze is you just walk in a room and the petals bloom, If you're really holding that torch, people can light their candles from you. So they say Leo needs the stage, Leo needs the spotlight. The real trip is the stage needs Leo because Leo is the spotlight, the illuminated, the radiant one. And so not only is it good to be queen, like it feels good, it's good for the world if you take your throne and if you sit in that place. And all that is required to do so, which is a whole lot, is to love yourself. And to do that, we must walk in the way of our honor. And we must wrestle, I think, for a time at least, with our culture's training, which I will say for the zodiacal archetypes is trying to suppress the fixed signs more than the others, because fix yourself to fix the world are places of personal power. And that place of Leo, the power is love yourself, confidence, pride, So we're taught that pride is arrogance, that confidence is cockiness, that self-love is vanity, ego. It's a lot to get past.
Yeah.
And we are programmed to need others to acknowledge that we are radiating, to feel as if we are. And the trick of the thing is that it can't start that way. Yeah. So this time we're in the midst of, and I say the middle again because May of 2017 till November of 2018 is the passage of the nodes through this axis called Aquarius Leo. It's about reclaiming our shine, North Node in that side. And North Node, this eclipse with Venus and Juno, relationship goddess, at the South Node in Aquarius, and then a retrograde Ceres, goddess of the crop, you know, a great mother goddess, whose story with her daughter Proserpina, in the Greek known as Persephone, teaches us the reasons for the seasons, which is a wonderful place to go in these times of pain and the burning, because we see that the initiation, not only for child, but for mother, maybe even more so, in the end, together they gave birth to the mysteries of death and rebirth, the Eleusinian mysteries. And Ceres says, go back to the old ways, you see, because she's retrograde. And she says, go back to the land. Think about this. What you reap is what you sow. What are you harvesting in your life right now? And do you remember how to play around a fire? Do you remember how to hold one another and be in this space and to bring intentions? So bringing intentions to any new moon, you know, and or any full moon or any minute, you know, but also marrying that intention to an offering. And that's powerful, purposeful purging. So here's this thing I want to call into my life. I will give this to make room for it. Or here's this thing I want to release. As I release this, I will allow it to be filled with something mysterious I don't have to know. In fact, if I allow myself to be surprised, I might just see wonder in front of my eyes that I could never predict. But understand that if you're giving something, you're making room for something beautiful. Or if you're calling in something beautiful, make room for that by giving an offering. Yeah, when we talk about those painful times as teachings, well, let's also make sure that we stay conscious and aware. But that doesn't mean overthinking, you know. And so when things are released, you know, I always say, take the time to grieve. So gratitude, you know, which again you invoked earlier, is so beautiful, but also grief, like, even if this is something that you've always disliked about yourself and you're releasing it, you got to love it on the way out. And I think you also have to take some time to say, well, that's always been my way. And you can say, well, that's because my dad did it, you know, or you can say, well, that's because I did it. And as I release this, I'm going to take like a couple weeks between this lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse just to say, that was me. That's how I always knew myself. And I'm glad to be shifting from that. But I also, that was me, and that got me here, and I can love that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I have a friend, another mom at school who recently lost her mom in an accident very suddenly. Mm. And I saw her at school, and we had this, you know, one of those like mystical moments where it feels like we're standing in the third grade. There's kids running all around, and it's just like me and her locked in, having this really deep, profound experience. And that topic of grief came up, and she was saying, you know, I wish I could wear a black, you know, ribbon around my arm or something to signify that I'm in grief, because I'm here, but I'm not here. You know, I'm like walking between worlds. And yes, I'm bringing my children to school and doing things that we do, but I am actually not here, you know. And I was equating it to the same way that women feel after birthing a child. You know, you're just in this really kind of altered state. It's very mystical. I mean, it's very much, you know, having your feet in both worlds. But yes, I wanted to acknowledge that the grieving process as well is just as important as, I mean, I don't even think I could get to that gratitude place about my own divorce until I had actually gone through a lot of the grief and really just been with the pain and been with the, you know, endless crying and feeling like there was never going to be an end to that darkness. So I think it's really important to just give ourselves permission, because in our culture, we don't, you're supposed to just move on and get over it and be done and just go back to life. And it's like, no, actually that is not healthy for any of us. to do that or expect ourselves to do that. So
such a magic, let's, like in the menstrual cycle, right? In the time of menstruation, like this is the magic time. This is the time of visions. This is like, when the council sits in the moon lodge and receives the dream that will set us all free. And we forget that and treat that gift like a curse. And the same thing with this projection that grief is some illness, or that you're meant to just put on the nice thing and flip a little shovel of dirt and then it's all good, instead of really wail or wake or whatever, that depression is some sickness. This came to me recently, that depressed is deep rest. And to the alchemist, that energy is such a profound portal into self-gnosis of awakening.
Wow.
And that's good. We're running out of time, so I don't want to take that thread too far.
We could take that thread far. We could take every thread you've brought up. We could go down many, many paths. And you're right. We are getting to the end. So is there anything that you want to leave us with today?
Yeah, well, I'd love to we have 3 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So 2 things. I'll try to be quick. One, you just spoke about the accident that brought this on. And can I wear a black thing? First of all, yes, you can. And
yeah.
You should, then.
I know, but no one would know what it means.
Right, but that's okay, right? Yeah. Because what's that going to bring alive for them? But so accidents have often been associated with Uranus, and Uranus with Aquarius, at least in modern times. And I go traditional and modern in these ways. But I learned this wonderful thing from David Cochran when he was the Astrology Hub's Inner Circle guide last year, of like, Uranus is free jazz, baby. And like improvise, because it's about getting us in the moment. And you know what? That's what the accident and these trauma signatures and these pains and these losses are about too. It's about bringing us into this moment. And so the thing I would really encourage at this time as well, and I'll go real quick, usually to get to Leo, we think, okay, Aries, the spark, Taurus, the body, Gemini, the mind, Cancer, the heart, just looking at these elements of fire, earth, air, water. And that brings me to Leo, where I first realized I'm fully elemental. I'm a creator being, my passionate creations. Well, the nodes move backwards. So once we become fully like creator beings, Leo, then we move to Virgo, which helps us dial in and polish the stone so we can know what we can bring now above the horizon to the world of visibility, other people, which begins with Libra and relationship. Well, when we go backwards, it's like relationship brings us into polish the stone. And that can be really tricky because it's, what's not happening well in my relationship? Why did that end? Now I have to clean it up so I can find self-love. That's a really tricky thing when this way goes backwards, but it's a beautiful study and an important one. And on the other side, I think this is much more, as important right now with this eclipse coming in Aquarius, is usually to get to Aquarius, it's like revolutionary thought. We move through relationship. We move through learning to trust and share heart. That's like the Scorpio in the 8th place. The vision quest, because part of self dies when we open into that shared way. But in the vision quest of like 9th of Sag, we can see what our sacred work is meant to play as like a calling in creative culture. And that can be 10th, really bringing us into our tribe. And then we see the traditions that are meant to have revolutions, 11th Aquarius, so we can get to spirit and source, Pisces, right? But when it goes backwards, we're bringing this, we're all connected, we're all one, Pisces truth into revolution. And it can really be confusing if we don't have the grounding, which usually comes through Capricorn on the other way, before we open up to our unique, let the freak flag fly, change the world vibe, right? And so what I'm seeing a lot right now is people are feeling the pain of the world and they're taking it on them to cure it. Or they're seeing the pain of an individual person and suddenly it's their responsibility to send all the white light and the archangels and these things. And I've been experiencing this a lot lately. Many people like not asking for consent before they send their healing white light. And the idea is, well, why should I have to? It's healing white light. Well, anytime we're sending our metta to anyone, it's energy. And people might not be ready to receive that. They might actually be in a place where they're meant to be in their deep rest or in their grieving. And you could be interfering with that process just as much as you might interfere with them if you send judgments or anything on the other side. So I would just really encourage people to be aware of that right now. There's something of grounding into your own experience and reflecting when you see in the group somebody having a really hard go, or this happened, that reminds me of this is how I went through it, wait until they come to, or if you have something to offer, hey, I would love to offer this, you know, or something, can I? And don't be hurt if they say no, right? So if we can utilize the beautiful mirror of our collective to reflect our own pains and then heal that, that's part of the fix the world, to fix the self, to fix the world idea. So I would love to share about that at length too, but we are out of time.
Fantastic. Gemini, I cannot believe you've had like 30 minutes of sleep last night. I mean, you are on fire. This has been so much fun, so much wisdom. I think we could take like each 10-minute segment and just piece out amazingness from you today. So thank you so much. And I know it was stressful getting here and everything with the flight delays. So thank you for showing up and for sharing with us here today. I wanted to just say a couple things. If you want to learn more about eclipses, we have an amazing eclipse mastery course that is available. We offered it last year. We featured 6 eclipse, basically astrologers who are eclipse experts. They've been studying this for decades in many cases. And if you want to understand the cycles and you want to understand the nodes and a lot of the things that Gemini Brett was talking about today, I highly recommend that course. It is not for beginners. So I would say if you consider yourself to be like intermediate to advanced, this is a great course for you. And then I also just wanted to remind you to sign up for live alerts. So you can sign up for live alerts and get a Facebook message from us anytime that we go live, so that you don't miss any of these Astrology Hub TV episodes and then other, bonus content that we put out on a less consistent basis, but you'll know when they're happening. So just wanted to remind you about that. Did you want to make any announcements, Gemini?
Well, I'm in the middle of the Sacred Astronomy for Astrologers course right now, and we're taking a break. So a couple people just wrote today, and it would be a great time to still join. If it's going to go through February 21st, you can find more information at morethan.com/sacred astronomy. Or actually, a better link, because Astrology Hub crew gets a discount, and you can watch like 6 hours of the first lesson for free. Go to morethan.com/agent1123, like the numbers 1123. So you can check that out and watch 6 hours for free and join us. Also, I'm going to be doing an eclipse talk at the NORWAC convention in Seattle the last week of March. We didn't speak about the 11s, the magic 11s, which is an 11-degree separation that Saros Cycles, a series of eclipses, touch on. It's been one of the kind of like new theories that I found my way to, or maybe I'm creating, I don't know, but I'm seeing confirmation in clients. I keep asking, hey, can I share your chart in this talk? Because like I'm seeing so much of this linkage in these patterns of eclipses, which is too long of a wrap for obviously in this moment. I did want to say one more thing. So we have the solar eclipse coming February 15th. We're in what I call a lunar year, because the lunar eclipses are total, unlike last year where the solar eclipses are total. And I think that's a fun thing to play with, is that more of the solar or more of the lunar energy. But like I won't be in a place where I can see the solar eclipse on February 15th, but that doesn't mean don't play. And I just encourage people, like if the sun's up, go to the sun, even if you're not in a place where you can see the moon eclipsing there. If the sun's not up, if it's at night for you, go to the center of the earth. That's where we measure all things astrology. That's where the syzygy of Earth's core and moon's core and sun's core is felt for all earthlings in the same place. And so gathering people together for this Aquarius, and here's the theme: freedom, right? So what's keeping you in chains and freedom? From freedom, and that freedom source, again, like when you find that inner flame, you are literally changing the world, because the world in a sense seems positioned to keep you from that place of loving you. And that's what this great axis teaches. If we can really connect to this, November, we start moving into like family and tribe. And so this is such an imperative time. I'm just so grateful, as so many of us are, for Astrology Hub, and like these many people are gathering us together to choose change. And we're going to see that it starts coming home and coming to the world in this year ahead.
Brilliant. And I just love that we can continue to tune into the cosmic curriculum. Just what are the messages from the universe? Where is the spotlight shining on us to grow, to learn, to evolve, to purge, whatever it is. And just tuning in. Okay, what's going on? Where is the focus? And coming together and doing it together is so potent. So thank you for helping to guide us in that exploration. Thank you to all of you for showing up today. We will be here, same time, but not same place. We will be back to our regular time next week, which is 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern on Thursdays. Cannot wait to see you then. And I just wanted to, again, thank all of you for joining, and thank you so much for making astrology a part of your life. We'll see you next time.